Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Seems to be the story of my life. But to be more accurate, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It seems no matter what I did to try to do my absolute best, I was only going to be allowed to touch greatness. Because no matter how hard I worked to be good at something, once I got really good, that's when I decide I didn't have what it took to be great. 2 steps back. I'd even decided that I was unlovable, that I would never know the love of a child who would call me Dad. That is, until I met my match. Justine was beautiful and funny. She was clever. She was Australian. And I didn't understand a word she said. And I'm exaggerating a little. There were a few words that got through, and I'm so glad they did, because she taught me the most important phrase I'd ever learned. It's going to be okay. 1 step forward. Now, early on in our relationship, she told me about a brain bleed she'd had, similar to a stroke. I think she told me because she wanted me to know that I had a way out if I wanted to leave. But I didn't want to leave. I didn't want a way out. I loved her from the moment I saw her. I wanted to see where she was going to take us. I'd never met anyone like her in my life. 1 step forward. And she loved me too. She just wasn't going to put up with any self-pity. She'd just say, it's going to be okay. And I'd say, but what if I fail? And she'd say, so what? I'd say, but I fail at everything I try. And she'd say, really? Everything? Well, there was that one time when I was on TV for a while, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, that was cool, right? Yeah, but what? You're not famous? You're not rich? What? Jack Black and I were in the same class, and I was the funny one. Oh, here we go with the Jack Black story again. When are you going to let that go? I don't know. And then she'd look at me with these eyes like pools of light, and she'd say the words that made everything okay. And I'd give in. And we got married. And we got pregnant. And it made me nervous because of the brain bleed. Doctors had said it could happen again. But we figured it could happen anyway. And we didn't want to live our lives in fear. We didn't know what the future held for us. And Joshua was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And he was everything a parent would want in a child. He was beautiful and smart and strong and funny. 1 step forward. And Lachlan James was born 3 years after, and he was beautiful and challenging. And he bit and fought us and would call us names and throw furniture. And I wondered if I had it in me to be enough for him. And Justine would say, it's going to be okay. And one night, after he'd pushed us both to our limits, I had a moment of clarity. I think because that phrase had been ringing around in my head so much. I thought back to a time before we were married. We had dance lessons to get ready for the wedding. I remembered thinking, when you're leading, even when you're going backwards, you're not always going backwards. Sometimes with just a little redirection, even when you're going backwards, you're going forwards. And in that moment, I wasn't angry anymore. I picked up my son, and I held him and kissed his beautiful face. I took him outside, and we just looked at the stars. And not only was it okay, in that moment, everything was perfect. And Lachlan is still challenging. But he is beautiful and smart and challenging. And we don't know what the future holds for us. And when my wife told me that she's losing some feeling in her tongue, or she can no longer keep sandals on her feet, she says she doesn't have the dexterity anymore, I feel so helpless. But I know what she would say. And it's because of her that I don't live in fear anymore. We don't know what the future holds for any of us, but we have to live. And if there comes a day when she can't dance with me anymore, we'll sit. But in the meantime, we'll dance. Back to you.